and even academic decline. With a slightly older age group, you could find a little difficulty with it could present in different ways. Like I said, with a younger age group, it could be more behavioral. Social anxiety is one of the domains in which it can present, where there is apprehension about meeting crowds. There could be performance related anxiety. One of the populations that was shown, in addition to school students, is also the working sector, where you could see performance related anxiety. There is always a fear about your performance, or will I be evaluated as good enough? Will I meet certain criteria? Will I make the mark? So when there is these constant thoughts that are happening, that is a symptom of anxiety. I would like to differentiate between, there are physical symptoms of anxiety as well as cognitive symptoms of anxiety, and there are psychological signs as well. In the psychological, you could have worrying, there could be apprehension, there could be a tendency to anticipate the worst. With cognitive, you could have difficulty with focus, concentration, memory. Emotional side, you could also have some signs of depression. Low mood symptoms can also be there when there is anxiety, because you are in a state where you feel that only the worst will come to pass, or you are not able to manage that overthinking phase that you are currently in. So this could be how it is experienced emotionally. And then we have also somatically or physically felt, as stress headaches is something that people commonly report, right? So stress as of such is experienced in one of these two ways. Anxiety is a side effect of stress. So when there is too much of anxiety close to exams, for example, then you could have stress headaches. There could be body pain, there could also be stomach related concerns, and tremors. There could be nausea, throwing up. These are some of the physical symptoms that can happen when the anxiety is a little excessive. Now, not all the symptoms of anxiety is, or I would say, anxiety as of such is not a problem. We all need a certain level of anxiety to function in day to day life. If I'm not anxious about my work, I would not put certain effort into it. If you're not anxious about your exams, you would not prepare for it. So a certain level of anxiety is necessary for us to function optimally. If I want to get to work on time, I should be anxious about, say, the traffic or getting too late, which would help me prepare for that situation better. So, while a certain or an optimum level of anxiety is required, excessive anxiety is not helpful. It is more energy, more thinking than it is required for that particular situation. So I spoke about anxiety, about how it is useful. We also have the ability to identify what actually triggers our anxiety in order to better deal with it. I usually, when I work with clients, we categorize the kind of events which triggers their anxiety and see what is it that is common amongst them, right? Let's say maybe every time you are expected to perform, when you are being evaluated, that creates an anxiety, and then we look at the reason why it is causing that particular anxiety. So when we are able to identify a trigger, right, it is, we are able to better prepare for the situation. If I know that um, uh, in certain performance situations is when I feel anxious because I feel I'm not confident enough, then confidence building is something that you can exclusively focus on in order to get better results in whichever domain you are performing in. So when I'm talking about how to deal with it, um, we spoke about cognitive anxiety, we spoke about psychological, emotional anxiety. There's a physical sensation related to anxiety as well, each of which can have a different management plan. So, if you're able to relate to any of the symptoms that I'm talking about, right, optimum anxiety is okay, but when it occurs for a longer period of time, right? Let's say there is a particular concern we call as generalized anxiety, which is a tendency to feel anxious about anything. It could be related to academics, it could be related to your work, it could be related to your social relationships, but there is a general anxiety um, about the worst case scenario in all of these domains. So this can interfere with our day to day functioning. I think one of the questions we will be looking at, and I will bring in these topics then and there, is also to when do I know I need help? When do I know that I need to seek professional help, or when do I need to consult with a psychologist, with a mental health professional? Is when these symptoms start to affect your day to day functioning. Memory disturbances, or focus and concentration, your performance, your productivity at work, if that is going down, if it's declining, and you find that the coping methods that you regularly use are not able to deal with the stressors that you are currently going through, then it might be a need to reach out to a professional to help give you a different perspective to that particular situation. Because when you are inside the problem, I often say, when you're inside the problem, you always feel that you have limited choices. So with a mental health professional, you are guided to see that same concern from multiple perspectives, so that you are able to generate more choices as to how to address anxiety in this particular case. So how counseling helps is, it helps give you a very third person perspective, a distant perspective from the problem. It helps give you more choices that you can work with, a kind of a clarity of thought, where you can distinguish between how to manage your emotions, how to manage your thoughts, how to deal with your physical symptoms. It helps to give you those coping strategies, or equip you with those coping strategies that or equip you with more coping strategies that can help you deal with anxiety. So generally with overthinking, so overthinking is one of the common concerns we find related to anxiety. Now when there's excess of thoughts, and this usually tends to happen when you are idle, or the time period just before when you get to bed. It can be a time period when you have less work to do, when your mind is drifting off, or overthinking might happen very close to the time when you feel like you are going to be evaluated, or that event that you are most worried about. So when there are too many thoughts, right, remember that these thoughts are most likely to result in worst case scenarios. Overthinking is not about the best case scenarios. Very rarely are we thinking about, oh, what if I get a promotion, what if I get a bonus salary. Those are things that will not give us anxiety. It's more or less related to, what if I fail in an exam, what if my friend stops talking to me, what if I lose students, what if my clients don't come back to me, what if my boss does not recognize my work, or what if he shouts at me after my presentation. So it's usually the worst case scenario. Now when you have this overthinking, the speed of thought process is really fast. So by the time you start with one thought, it goes on to another thought, and within like 2 minutes you've already got a couple of worst case scenarios out there that results in your cognitive, your physical symptoms of anxiety, etc. So when there is so much of thinking that is happening, slowing down is very difficult. So we usually encourage that to manage or to deal with that anxiety, you start writing down your thoughts. Documenting your thoughts slows down the process, because simply said, you can't write as fast as you think. So the speed at which you are going to be thinking is also going to start coming down when you write. Also when you write, what you write is more concrete than just having the thoughts in your head, which can connect to something completely irrelevant, or bring up past memories. Remember that your mind is like, this is it's like a box of a lot of things that are both wanted and unwanted. So as long as your thoughts are up here, you cannot prevent unwanted memories or thoughts or past experiences from coming through. So documenting your thought really helps with managing anxiety. Practicing relaxation, practicing gratitude is something also that helps, because it tells you that I'm mindful of the good things that are going on in my life right now. Relaxation techniques, you don't have to be trained in something full fledged like yoga or certain intense meditative techniques, but simple breathing techniques, and there are plenty that is available online, which you can practice just before situations that you feel that might stress you out. Because if you already go into a situation or an event anticipating the worst, then you might less likely put your best foot forward in that situation, or you might hold back from taking risks. You might hold back from trying out new experiences because you fear something or you're anxious about something. So, documenting what is it that you are actually anxious about? What are those thoughts? If you're able to identify those triggers, then that will help you prepare for those triggers a lot better. Whether it is about improving your social skills, or your, I spoke about confidence, or whether you learn to be you need to learn to be more assertive, or is it that you need to actually prepare for your exam a little better, or leave from your house a little earlier so that you get to somewhere on time, or whether you get feedback from your boss so that the mistakes you made once will not be repeated. When you are able to structure your thought process, the overthinking is less likely to go out of hand. To the question which says how much counseling is going to help, and will it really help get rid of anxiety? I think what counseling does is equip you with skills to help you manage anxiety, so that when it does happen, you would know what to do. That you don't have to go running to a professional every time that some certain things get out of hand or certain things get overwhelming. Counseling will help equip you with certain skills, certain management strategies, and we will generally, professionals will also take you through certain scenarios or certain events that you are fearing, to almost like practice those strategies as well. So depending on the therapeutic technique that is followed, therapists sometimes even practice during the session, so that when in real life you exhibiting these skills will be a lot faster and easier. So whether it helps, I wouldn't say it gets rid of anxiety. That depends from client to client, from person to person, but it can definitely help you manage your anxiety. It can help you look at something you thought was a mountain and make it look like a smaller bump along the way. Perspective changing, if I'm able to look at a weakness as a strength, if I'm able to look at anxiety as a strength, because if I know I'm anxious about something, I know that something is not in place. And if with the working with a mental health professional, you will be able to identify what that something is and get management strategies to stop fearing that situation. Right. So I hope I have covered all the questions here. We have one more which says, with the in this world of commercialization of treatment, how do I know whom to trust? Right. So we definitely have a lot of mental health professionals, and with the pandemic, we also have a lot of them having onboarded their practice. What I would generally recommend is, one, when you do connect with a mental health professional, it is completely okay to check their, ask them for their qualifications, right? At least to ensure that they have a minimum of a master's degree uh, in psychology, in psychological counseling degrees, psychological clinical degrees, at least a master's program. Students are not permitted to take clients, but professionals or individuals who have completed their masters, that's very important. You can look at the number of years of experience that they have, or the institutes that they're associated with. Now, with different websites like Practo, even Google has reviews that you can read up about a particular professional. You can get on a call with them, or even write down the queries that you have prior to connecting with them, such as I often find people even hesitate to take consultation because of the charges associated with it. And rest assured, We have counselors who operate with varied, like a sliding scale. So you could find counselors who could even take a session for as low as 300 rupees per hour, and it can go up to 5,000 rupees per hour or even more. But you can connect to a professional as according and comfortable to your budget. But definitely look at their qualification, the number of years of experiences, the institutes that they're associated with. You can even ask them the method that they follow when it comes to practice. There are different therapeutic techniques. You don't have to know any of that in depth, but a grief counselor may not be able to help with a child and adolescent issue. So we have different counselors who specialize as per age groups, who specialize as per topics like grief counseling or substance use counseling, etc. So you could ask them the domain of work as well, and always clarify these doubts before you start therapy. It will definitely help you get some clarity about whom to trust and whom not to trust. So I really hope these questions or this discussion has helped you. If there's anything else, you can always feel free to connect with us again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your valuable advice and insights with us. I am sure everyone listening is more informed on what anxiety is and how they can deal with it. I would like to state the steps to avail the e-certificates before moving on to our next speaker. Attend the full webinar. Once you see thank you displayed on the screen, there will appear a link to Google Attendance form in the chat box. Click to mark your attendance and get the feedback form emailed. Fill the questionnaire that you receive on your mail for the details. Follow our page on Instagram and Facebook. If the above stated steps are followed, an e-certificate will be automatically mailed to you. Kindly note that the certificates will be mailed within 24 to 48 hours. Our second speaker for the evening is Dr. Devyappa. Dr. Divya has done her post-graduation in psychiatry from Dr. Devyappa University, Mumbai. With a work experience of 10 years, she is a consulting psychiatrist with the Department of Mental Health and Behavioral Sciences of Fortis in Kolkata. She has been conducting various workshops at schools for students, parents, and even teachers. She has been actively involved in spreading awareness about the importance of mental health among the corporates and other institutions as well. I would now request ma'am to please enlighten our audience.
Hello. Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Divya. As Miss Rachel has very elaborately explained about anxiety and everything related with it, I will try to, pick up some points which are not the same. I'll try my best in doing that. So for us, it's very important to understand what is anxiety, what causes anxiety, and what are the signs and symptoms that, they cross a normal line where you have to actually start taking some kind of help, either with a psychologist or with a mental health professional like a psychiatrist. So what is anxiety? Anxiety is basically what happens is it's an unpleasant, a very vague apprehension that starts coming up, which is associated with a lot of autonomic symptoms, like the patient or the person starts feeling very restless, becomes starts sweating, there is palpitations associated with it. The person says that my heart is beating very fast, it's like it's racing. Then you can have tremblousness, your hand starts trembling, you are not able to speak clearly, you don't understand what's happening around you. Sometimes you feel this lightness in your chest as if something might happen. So these are certain signs and symptoms that start associated with anxiety. Now what happens is that, see, anxiety itself is a very vast, a very vast disorder. So like as Miss Rachel very clearly said that, some kind of anxiety is very important for us. It pushes us to do something in our life. It makes us more confident. Like when you're giving your exam, or if you are having a presentation in the office, some kind of apprehension, some kind of feeling anxious or feeling restless is very common. It's something that your body reacts to a situation. But what happens when this restlessness, this anxiety is so much that you are not able to carry on your daily work? Like suppose if you have these intrusive thoughts, they keep coming up continuously. You have some kind of an habit in which you want to keep checking things again and again. But it comes to such an extent that you're not able to do the next task, or maybe even your daily tasks that you do. You have this fear of, if I go and talk in the public, or if I go and talk on the stage, what will people think about me? Let alone stage, if there's a small social gathering, you start avoiding that, thinking that, you become overcritical of yourself, thinking, what will people think about me? Maybe they will not like me. Maybe I will not live up to their expectations. So what happens? You start avoiding these things. So this starts interfering with your everyday work. When you feel that either you or anybody else is started to suffering with these symptoms, where it is hampering their daily work, they're not able to do the normal tasks like they were doing every day, is the time when you should feel that, okay, something is wrong with me, something somewhere is not right. Anxiety, I'm anxious, I'm restless, it's okay. But now if it's interfering with my work, or if you see your spouse, you see your children, you see your co-workers, that this kind of anxiety or being apprehensive or trying to avoid things, making excuse, like in children, they start making excuses of not going to school. Now, why is the child making excuse every day? Like Miss Rachel said very clearly, that for children, they may not have these particular symptoms that are book related, that this is what the child might have. The child might have anxiety symptoms in a very different way. Like, let's say that, okay, a child is very scared when a dog barks. The child becomes very, starts crying, starts shouting. But it's not because that the child is scared of the dog. The child is scared because maybe, he or she has had a traumatic childhood or some traumatic incident in his life. Maybe there's some parent or some family member who really shouts in the house. So the child is correlating his fear, his anxiety with that of the dog barking. Similarly, what happens in anxiety is that, okay, in adolescents or teenagers, there's a lot of peer pressure that comes up. So they start acting it out. They start, becoming irritable. They start avoiding classes. They don't want to go to the school or even their colleges. Then what happens in adults? Adults also, we feel that we might not be having any kind of anxiety. It's very common for us. But sometimes this anxiety comes to a stage where you are not able to, even carry out simple meetings, like just talking to colleagues around you. You are not doing that. You start taking leaves from the offices. Sometimes what happens is that anxiety is so much that you don't want to even step out of your house. So this is the time where you should start answering or start thinking yourself, or for anyone else, that something is wrong. There is something that is bothering you or or the person around you, that these symptoms are not normal. So this is the time